and welcome to Cut It With a Hammer. In the last episode, I had decided that I was going to get a stop saw as my next table saw. But I'd also remembered that I'd seen a year or two earlier a video out of Germany of a guy using a table saw where part of the table slid past the table saw blade instead of the whole one big flat surface. I thought that was kind of interesting, and I immediately saw some advantages to that type of setup. If you look on YouTube, you'll see that there's tons of people making crosscut sleds for their table saw. Now, it's obviously to solve a problem or a limitation of the design of the table saw, but part of the problem is you also lose some blade height when you make one of those and use one of those, because you have to have some sort of platform on which you're building your sled with. So a sliding table seemed to kind of make sense when you're thinking about it from that point of view. I had been over at the Laguna website because I've purchased a number of their tools, and they have what they call panel saws, which are sliding table saws. At the time, I don't recall there being prices, and they also looked kind of big. I recently went back there just to double check, and they have a smaller one which probably would have fit comfortably in my garage that handled 5-foot material. But the next one size up was like 8-foot material, and that is getting pretty big if you consider that you have to have 8 feet in front of the blade and 8 feet behind the blade. So right there, that's 16 to 17 feet, and you're pretty much hitting the limit of the length of a garage bay with that type of with that length. So 5 seemed a little bit too small, and 8 seems a little bit too big. I did run across a video by Marius Hornberger, which there's a link to the description below, that pretty much sold me on a sliding table saw and specifically pointed me to getting a hammer. I had stopped by my local woodcraft store and talked to the manager there, a guy by the name of Mike, who's always very helpful, and I've bought all my big machines from him. So we talked briefly about a sliding table saw, but he really didn't have much knowledge in them because it's not something they sell. I think Grizzly sells some, and I did take a look at the Grizzly website, and they do have a sliding table saw. It looks kind of big still, and some of the reviews I did finding on those weren't particularly glowing. So what I ended up doing is going over to the Felder website, and they did have some prices listed there, but it wasn't real clear because basically when you order a hammer table saw, they're pretty much custom built with the features that you want. And I knew I wanted some specific features, and a generic price starting at X and X dollars wasn't really telling me what I wanted to know. So I had to sign up to get a little bit more information, and of course when you sign up, you give your name and phone number, and eventually a sales guy will call you. I did talk to a very nice guy named John out of their Delaware office, and no pressure at all in terms of sales. He said pretty much, what do you want to do, what features you're looking for. He pointed me in the direction of the hammer line, which is their low-end line. They have a mid-range called the Felder line, which is very good, and there's a lot of people who have those. And then there's the professional line, the Format 4, and those are like really expensive and a lot of automation and just way too much for someone who does the type of woodworking I do. So after about a week or 10 days of back and forth emails and phone calls with John, basically describing exactly what I wanted, I had gone from a small hammer K3 to a little bit bigger hammer B3, and the B stands for the fact it has a shaper as part of the saw unit. It doesn't add any more space, but being a combination machine adds the inconvenience of swapping between the two functions, which in hindsight probably Probably wasn't the best move, but at the time I didn't think I was going to have a lot of shop space. But we'll get to that later, probably in the next video. So I ended up with ordering from John the Hammer B3 comfort package on the winter model, which is not the biggest of the Hammer lines, but it's just a little bit smaller. It'll cut a 6 feet of material. So that means roughly it takes up from the slide from one end before the blade to pushed all the way past the blade is a total of about 13 feet. So it pretty much takes up the full length of a garage bay. There are some useful areas on the right side of the saw for other things, but for the most part, you've got to have a pretty good space to the left of the machine. So, you know, a lot of people say buy once, cry once, and I decided that instead of going with the stop saw or saw stop, I always get those backwards, that I would go with a hammer. And so I placed the order at the end of January, and it showed up the end of July. And I've got it in the shop, and I've been using it for about a week now, and I'm pretty happy with it. The next episode, I will give you a tour and show you a little bit more of the safety stuff on sliding table saw, and it's going to be not specifically just to the hammer line, but it's sliding table saws in general. So I'll hopefully get that out here in a few weeks. But until then, please subscribe, click like, you can click on the bell if you want to be notified for the next videos that come out, and we'll see you in the next video.